Welcome to the Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts. We are your international headquarters for resources and ideas and insight in relation to the 9 elements of holistic wellness. Join us as we interview local and international wellness experts and learn how you can implement and improve one element or dimension of wellness at a time. Our experts will share their practical tips on wellness in one of these core areas: emotional, intellectual, occupational, physical, environmental, financial, spiritual, social, or habitual. We created our family of podcasts as a resource for anyone who is looking to integrate the 9 elements of holistic wellness into their daily lives. Welcome to the show. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Today, I'm excited to have Joshua B. Lee on the show. Joshua, welcome to the show.
Jeff, man, excited to be here. I mean, if our pre-conversation prior to us starting this is anything what's about to happen, I mean, we're about to have a lot of fun and create some value for everybody.
I love it. And my viewers know I usually ask standard questions, but the thing is, Joshua's a pro at podcasting, and we had some fun conversations before we started recording. So, Joshua, I'm going to start with one of my canned questions, and then we're going to get into the rest, and we're just going to go on whatever tangent the universe decides.
Love it, my friend.
Let's start by tell me who you are and what you do.
Who I am and what I do. I mean, it's such a loaded question, right? I mean, it's like, what do I do? I love when people walk up and they're like, hey, what do you do? I'm like, man, I wake up every day, I breathe, I eat, I kind of go through. It's so funny, but like, what do I do? Like, I'm Joshua B. Lee. A lot of people, Jeff, have known me as another title that was given to me on another podcast years ago as the dopamine dealer of LinkedIn. And, I love the title. People always kind of go, wow, that's amazing. And it's all based on that human element, right? Just the things that my mother taught me how to be able to treat other human beings. We just do it online. And when I was sharing this, it's kind of the podcast came out like Joshua B. Lee, the dopamine dealer of LinkedIn. I was like, all right. But, Jeff,
I'll take it.
It didn't start with that, man. I kind of go back in and, I started back in like 20 plus years ago. This is what my wife always tells everyone, or tells me at least, this is what ages you. One of my first clients was MySpace. So, when we kind of go back in, and depending on the age of the readers, they're like, yeah, I heard about that platform, but, I helped them develop one of the first social media ads to be able to monetize their traffic. That a lot of social media is based off of today. So, I mean, like when you kind of look at that, I had a very big hand in monetizing the web, and I built multiple different companies monetizing every acronym you could think of. And yes, it led me to what the average person says is successful, right? Monetary value, but I was actually in a very depressive state and was doing this things to make money that forefront. And so when I went through a reset in my life about 9 years ago, walked away from everything, closed down all my companies, and restarted with a little bit under $1,000 my name. I really wanted to make sure that I added value to this world, not just monetized it, right? And how do we actually do that? And that was with people, right? Really being able to bring that back. And that's kind of where Standard Authority was born. And we started, really being able to be the human algorithm behind some of the top voices on LinkedIn. And that allowed me to work with some of the men and women. I used to read their books on how to be able to start my own companies. And now we help them educate, inspire, and draw on their audience, not sell them, right? Because no one wants to be sold. They want to be, if they choose to work with you, man, that's powerful. And that's what we do today at Standard Authority.
I love that. Now, tell me what you're passionate about. Why do you do what you do?
I do what I do because, I've got 2 kids, and I've actually, depending on when this podcast comes out, I might have 3 kids. So my wife is very pregnant and due in the next couple of weeks. So, I'm going to be a new dad again after 11 years, since the last time I was a new dad. So, talk about passion. This is what it's all about, right? Like I had such a hand, like I mentioned before, in monetizing the web. And I see that we were going the wrong way, right? I mean, there were so many different aspects. It was so impersonal. And honestly, I don't want that for my children, right? I want to be able to remind people the you and human. I think that's one of the biggest things that we continue to forget. And I mean, if I can be able to do that, right? Not only be able to help people be able to build the relationships and not feel alone in this world, just even that one person, the way I felt alone, no matter how successful I was, that's what this is all about, because I tried to change this world on my own and I damn near killed myself doing it, Jeff. I mean, I truly, to be 100% transparent. And as you even catch, I stutter when I say it. I contemplated my life being on this planet anymore. And I was very blessed that a good friend of mine gave me permission to be able to take that life back and be able to do the things that I do now, to be able to not only support my kids, but to be able to change the lives and be able to help the next generation by really doing what you and I love best, teaching people there's another human being on the other screen.
I love that. And first of all, I had no idea your wife was that pregnant. So I'm going to just try to get this out before the baby's born, just because I think that'll be fun.
Yeah.
But congratulations. That
Thank
is,
you.
and it's total tangent, Joshua, but I realized my people are people who love their kids. And it's a weird thing to say, but I recognize some people tolerate their kids, some people like their kids, but when I meet people who live for their kids. Those are my people. So,
Yeah. Well,
um,
Jeff, I'll tell you too, and this is not a plug in any way, but it's really changed my life. A good friend of mine, John Vroman, runs a group called Front Row Dads. It's all about being a dad first, entrepreneur second. Highly, highly recommend it. It's so amazing to be able to run other dads that really love their children and are learning to be able to not only share with other men, but how to be able to actually, be an amazing partner and amazing father. So, again, you just said total tangent as well. But whenever I hear another man talking about that, I'm like, hey, you got to check this out. Because that's what's really, I think that's more important than, you know, anything that you and I could share on LinkedIn. It's, being an amazing parent.
yeah. And honestly, when people say, "Oh, my kids are jerks," I know everything I need to know about them because where did those kids come from, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. Now we will talk about LinkedIn. I think honestly, what my gut is telling me is let's talk about relationships because I hear a lot of noise, and I want your take on this one in particular.
Yeah.
Pe- People say, "Oh, you focus on relationships, so you don't close deals." Like there's this sense of either or in the world. You are all about relationships and you use a tool like LinkedIn. So I think this is going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Uh, but how would you respond to somebody who says, "Oh, you focus on relationships, so you don't close deals"? That's my favorite one.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you, I get that all the time. And, I start, it's kind of like going through, and I tell everyone, so like you're telling me if you pitch 1,000 people and you get the one sale, you're like, yay, I got the one sale. Honestly, you probably just pissed off 999 people, right? There's a better way to be able to do it. Me personally, I'd rather than selling someone and looking for that lead, right? That's a one-to-one relationship. I'd rather build advocates first and allow the byproduct to become clients, right? Because an advocate is super powerful. The only way to be an advocate can bring us thousands of opportunities. And the only way to be able to create an advocate is to be able to treat them like a human being. How do we treat someone like a human being? We have real conversations that create real relationships that open up real opportunities. And that's what you and I want to be able to do. And that's what I want people to think about, right? Like, do you want to spend all day trying to make $1 million selling a million people a dollar product? Would you rather have 10 high value relationships that potentially could be worth $100,000? That's a lot easier to be able to do. People go, oh, that's more difficult. No, because you're spending the time, energy, and effort into those people, and those type of relationships, those six-figure relationships, they're not going to fall for, hey, Jeff, I see you wearing a shirt. Me too. Let's connect. Ever thought
Or
about using LinkedIn to get leads? Right? Like, probably not the way that you're showing me, right? Because like if this is how you do it, I don't want you to do that for me.
I laugh at that. Sorry, that's my one little thing. When somebody comes at me, a friend of mine gave me the term pitch slap. When they pitch slap me,
Oh yeah.
uh, I feel it's my duty to educate them on the error of their ways because it's like, does that seriously work?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you like widgets? I have a widget. How many would you like? It's just
Wow. I used to go through that. My wife's like, you can't be mean to everyone. I'm like, I'm not being mean. I'm just trying to educate them because like if they're trying to represent themselves, and I'll see these, and again, not trying to go to LinkedIn, but like that's the power platform that I work on the most, is that, you've got these LinkedIn experts and you'll look at their career and they took some course. Before that, they were selling pizzas. And I mean, again, no judgment, but like you can't be a LinkedIn expert immediately. And then you're going through there And it's just like, what's going on here? And it continues to perpetuate. So if we don't educate, right? Like, and this is why I share so much on LinkedIn about how to be able to do it the right way rather than gating it and going like, oh, you can't know my secrets, right? Unless you pay me. Like that doesn't help anyone, right? Like you and I have to be able to educate, inspire, and draw people in because again, that's how we'll truly change and create a bigger impact in this world, even if it's our quote unquote competition, right? It's better they do it the right way because it makes it better for everybody.
I love that. And by the way, one of my favorite questions when a so-called, 20-something LinkedIn expert reaches out to me, my question is always, if you're as good as you say you are, why are you reaching out to me and not me begging to work with you?
Yep.
I get told off a lot. But
You know what though? That means you're doing the right thing, Jeff. And I think I look at that, right? I mean, it's always funny. People will go in and they're like, oh, well, like negative reviews or you'll have your haters or something like that. I'm going to say you're not being polarizing enough. You're not standing up for what you truly believe in. If you don't have those people, a good friend of mine, Jesse Elder, always says you got to drink your haterade to be able to create true change. Right. And,
I love
that's when you know that you're really moving forward. You're pushing the envelope enough. Now, I'm not saying that we need to be able to go out there and there's difference than being polarizing and adding value to this world and being polarizing and negatively affecting the world around you. You and I see it. We all see it these days in this world we are in right now. And I think there's a better way to be able to attract our tribe and push away the ones that we do not align with.
And I think that's a good conversation piece. We're building relationships and those relationships lead to business. Not everyone is going to be a good fit. And
Right.
you and I, we owe it to ourselves, from a sanity point of view. I used to try to please everyone. Well, that's a recipe for fatigue, burnout. You're laughing. I know you've been there, done that.
Oh yeah.
So I think it is about polarizing and gently attracting those that belong in our community and gently repelling those that don't. And it's no judgment. It's just
Yeah.
I live for my kids. If you hate your kids, we're probably not going to have a lot in common, right?
Well, as human beings, right? We look for commonality, and that's the whole piece. People try to be everything to everyone, and then you start attracting the wrong tribe, right? And you want to be able to go on like, I want people to go, oh, Josh and Jeff have kids, me too, right? I bet we align, right? And then we see this in human nature, and I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing people continue to be able to do. But I mean, I've done the things. I wrote a whole book on balance is bullshit, right? Like how to be able to actually go through and live more integrated life because this is what we're taught, this work-life balance, which is like living two different personalities, right? You have this one business and online personality that you're just indifferent to everyone. You're just putting out content for content's sake going through, and then you have your personal life. The two never mix. That's like having two different personalities.
Yeah.
And most people that have two different personalities are even taking a lot of meds or they're in a hospital, right? We have one life. We have to live it that way. So we have to be ourselves 100% on and offline. And I think that's what people forget to be able to do. And when you're 100% you, man, not only is it freeing, but people go, man, I know this person, right? I want to connect with this person. You attract those right people.
Well, and to that point, I'm going to tell you, Joshua, once upon a time, I taught a seminar on, it was ethical selling for professionals.
Okay. I like it.
And it was fascinating because I didn't know. I was put in front of this room and I was told it was a room full of accountants. So I just went into, here's how you ask questions. Like I literally, I'm all about the consultative sales process. If we're a fit, great. If we're not a fit, I'll send you away.
Yeah.
You've got resources you can use. Somebody in the room put up their hand almost at the end of the talk and said, okay, this was amazing stuff. The only thing is you didn't tell us how to fake sincerity and authenticity. And I was like speechless for a heartbeat. And I went, what? And I said, okay, show of hands, who else in the room feels that I missed the piece on faking sincerity and authenticity? 100% of the room, hands up. It turns out I was supposed to be in a room full of accountants, but I was in a room full of insurance salespeople. And I said, by definition, you can't fake sincerity.
No.
If people fall in love with this false persona that you've built, at some point that relationship crumbles because it was built on a lie.
Yeah. But Jeff, I love how you kind of go on that, because I think this is a very pivotal point in our evolution as human beings these days. 2008 was a big shift in online. I think right now we're going through it as well, because people go, oh, well, we're in a digital revolution, but you and I both know it's a human revolution, because again, so many people are using AI and being able to go through and think that a computer can be able to create sincerity, fake sincerity or fake, enthusiasm or emotion, but it can't.
Yeah.
It can't be you without you, right? Like, and being able to go through that. And we're going to see a huge shift in people being able to be seen more than ever, because content's not king anymore. It hasn't been for a long time, right? Quality is queen, right? Really being able to go through the quality that really draws an audience and educates them. Because now anyone can put up anything, anyone can fake anything. We're going to see a lot of these fakers show up even more and more. And I think I've seen it over 20 years, right? Like, human beings, we catch on. Things only last for so long until they go, oh, okay, I see the trick, right?
Yeah.
And then they kind of go in. And I think that's what we're going to start seeing right now. We're going to really see that human side. People are they're like, oh, well, AI can do everything for me. I think we're going to see the right people going, that's cool, but, and you and I had this conversation too, right? We talked about applications or appliances versus tools, right? Something that we can all use, LinkedIn, or use it as a tool in the right hands. The artist can take a tool like a chisel and be able to create amazing things. And that's what we're going to see with AI. If you use it as a tool and as an appliance, we're going to see a massive shift and see really people shine even more.
And I think that's one of the things I'm seeing now is a lot of people who shouldn't be content creators or who aren't good at it. They're using the tool incorrectly and they're creating this weird dystopian technology or content that, I look at it and I'm like, I see what you're trying to do, but I can also see how confused you are. And
Right.
therefore, and that's, I'm going to just say, I believe if we're authentic and we show up, the saying warts and all, I think, our tribe will find us
Yeah.
and they're more eager to support the authentic person than the showman that, there's nothing behind them other than, a flimsy stage. So
But Jeff, we all want to be an influencer. I mean, we all want to, it's so cool to be able to see they're running around on yachts, leaning on Lamborghinis, being able to kind of go through. And it's like, wait a minute, you're right. No one, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I don't want to be an influencer. I want to be a thought leader with influence,
yeah.
but I don't want to be an influencer, because when I think influence, that's what I think there. Right. And I think that's been, social media has twisted so much of the actual reality and world. My wife and I were just talking about the other day, as we get older, right? Having a kid. Look, man, I'm 45 right now. And they're going through and my wife was joking. She's like, no, what you're going to be when she graduates, high school. I'm like, yeah, 60s. Thanks. I always appreciate it.
Don't do the math. Don't do the math.
My wife's younger than me, so she can say these things kind of going in, but, and I'm like, well, I mean, like, I do my best to be able to, like, we were talking about movies, like, who do you think? And I was like, okay, wow. Sometimes I'm actually basing how I should age based on the movie stars, the TV stars, the people that we see all the time. And she's like, so what you mean is, as we age and get to 65, we need to be able to do more Botox, have, personal chefs, be able to make sure we're putting in lots of plastic surgery. I'm like, you're right. Again, this is what this dystopian society we continue to be able to see is a false reality. We need more real and raw rather than overproduced. And I think that's the biggest shift that's going to come in. That's where men like you and I have to truly share what we've went through. So like me, I never want anyone to feel as alone as I did when I used to be in my office staring at the wall for 8 hours straight, wondering if the money I would leave for my family would be more important than me.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think that's a really good, Joshua and I, we could have talked about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But the reality is it's that human to human connection. So I am going to bring this back to LinkedIn to some degree.
It all racks in, right? I mean, like, because Jeff, like you talk about, like, this is all, if people aren't paying attention, it doesn't matter what platform, right? Because most people are like, what's the hack or the trick for the LinkedIn algorithm, the Facebook or the Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube, whatever. The hacks and tricks are things we have to learn. But once you actually learn that human algorithm, the one that really matters, the one that doesn't change every couple of weeks, but just evolves over time, that's what matters. You don't have to continue to learn the next trick or hack. It stands the test of time. And so everything you and I are talking about is so impactful, and they can use not only in their lives, but on LinkedIn, on all these platforms, because LinkedIn's not a B2B play, right? Everyone's like, oh, it's a B2B. Every company is run by another human being. Most marketers forget that. So we have to remember everything is human to human, right? That's the big play. And it took me a lot of years, man, to really realize that. I mean, I've in my career, and it's crazy to be able to think of these numbers though, but I've monetized almost $1 billion in advertising over the last 20 years. And I've controlled over 35 trillion online impressions across my own servers. And in that time frame, the biggest thing I learned is there's a huge amount of traffic and actually true engagement. Right? True engagement is human to human. And that's what we have to be able to really focus on. And that's why I think everything we've shared so far, they can take it and use across every platform, even LinkedIn.
Well, and I'm just sensing, and I want your take on this, but
Yeah.
when you focus on the human to human, you can sort of be inside the eye of the storm, and you can watch, the algorithms changing around you.
Oh yeah.
But what I love about that is, the algorithms change by the minute almost, it seems. Whereas human to human, I mean, we're not that far from the cave people who sat around the fire, and we told stories and we drew pictures on the wall with, whatever we had at hand. We still crave that connection of the hearth.
Oh yeah. Well, Jeff, I mean, like, seriously, like what I'm doing over on LinkedIn for elite clients, like it's nothing different than what my mother taught me how to be able to treat other human beings growing up. We're just doing it online. And I think that's the big thing. And people go, well, how can that get me leads? How can they get me clients? Be amazed, right? Like, and that's that human element, because as human beings, once we actually understand it, just like you said with cave people, right? Being able to go through them, we all make decisions based on some degree of love or hate. We do not make decisions being indifferent to something. And so many people want to be indifferent online because they don't want to be polarized. They don't want to, ruffle any feathers being able to go through. But like, if you're indifferent in life and online, you're just wasting time. And guess what? That's the only one resource we don't get back. So you're not only wasting your own time creating the content, you're wasting the reader's time, and they're not going to be pulled in and be able to create any opportunity to be able to go forward. And so that's what we have to be able to realize is like, how do we actually do that? How do we actually build those connections? And then really understand, like, I mean, this is how I got the title dopamine dealer of LinkedIn, was how do we actually give those little hits of dopamine that put someone and Jeff, this, right? Like, I mean, like so many people get dopamine and serotonin mixed up, and dopamine actually puts us in a flow state. It doesn't elevate us. So it allows you and I, like right now, we're having dopamine hits because we're having such good conversation. Everyone's just listening. Like there could be no one listening. You and I would still just be having a good conversation, which we are. And, that's what we're trying to be able to create. And this is what people have to remember to do online, but they forget they talk at people. If you and I were just doing this thing, we're like, these are the things you need to do. And I was like, and next podcast, right? Like,
Yeah. Up on the, on the pulpit, sermon from the mount sort of thing.
yeah.
And I think that's, one of the things I'm hearing, and I do want to ask you a question about your mom.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm hearing is, everybody's trying to be this persona and just be you, because what is the saying? Everybody else is taken. You can be yourself.
Oh, yeah.
What was the best advice? You keep talking about your mom, which I love. What was your best advice from mom that still applies today in your LinkedIn world?
Here's the whole piece. And I think it across everything in my world, respect above all else. Right. I mean, that was that one thing my mom and dad both instilled with me. And it was funny growing up too, because again, treat people with the respect that you want to receive in return. And I was that young kid, and I'd call my friends' parents by their first name. They're like, dude, who are you? Like, what's going on? Right. Like, it was just something that I was taught, right. And being able to kind of go through. And that still stands true today, because respect is one of the hardest things to gain, but one of the easiest things to lose. And in today's world, especially on LinkedIn, your personal brand, I mean, we've been building this since we started being online, right? Without even knowing it half the time. And I think this is that big thing that people have to pay attention to: respect above all else, right? Not only respect for others, but for respect for yourself. most people don't respect themselves enough to use the word no, right? Hey, not for me. Or, hey, Jeff, I want to pay you to hire me. I want to be able to, sell a whole bunch of crap. And then people are like, and you're like, actually, no, I'm not your guy. When people come to me and they go, hey, Josh, can you help me get a whole bunch of leads? I'm like, I'm not your guy. There's 1,000 people behind me. They're going to take your money because that's exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah.
If you want to educate, inspire, and draw your audience, I got you all day. Right. And so these are those things that we have to understand, that respect. And it stands true. And I don't care who you are, what you're doing when you're going through, like, here's an example, Jeff, and I'll pull it back. And I'm not sure if you know this name or not, but Dan Sullivan, strategic coach. He's been around for a long time.
Love Dan. Love Dan.
Dan's good friend of mine, past client, being able to go through. And, one of the stories we kind of go through is, always engage with people that engage with you. Right. And it's a level of respect. And we have so many people that are running. I was like, why would I, go in? So we have to look at this, right? When people engage on your posts, no matter what platform, but on LinkedIn too, we can actually see people that actually go through and view our profiles, right? Most people don't realize these are stone unturned to be able to go through. One of the biggest things I learned going through COVID was we lack appreciation for the little things in life we take for granted, right? We lacked appreciation for having to wear a mask all the time, being able to go out, traveling, do all these things. Now, one of the biggest things I lacked, Jeff, like, I'm gonna be honest, I love my children, but I lacked the appreciation for the teachers when my kids went to school. That I was not the teacher that I had always envisioned, maybe at least for my own children, right? Being able to go through. Did not appreciate those teachers enough. And so, that's the same thing with being online. So, like, when we go through, one of the things that I teach people all the time, Jeff, is appreciate those people. Hey, Jeff, I noticed you looked at my profile. I just want to reach out and say thank you. Too often we don't appreciate that. Love to be able to connect with you and find out what push you're looking at. Or, hey, Jeff, man, I saw you like my recent post, man. I just want to say thank you, right? Too often I don't appreciate it. Love to be able to connect with you and find out what pushed you to engage in my content, right? Just doing this little thing of thank you. So, like with Dan, who went through and he said thank you to someone, right? And this is Dan Sullivan. He's been doing this for 30 plus years, right?
Yeah.
And like, who would ever think that Dan's going to go out and just thank someone? But never know what that little thank you is going to do someone in life. Not only create an advocate, but it can treat true change, because we thank this person, and his response is something that I'll never forget, Jeff. He responded, he goes, Dan, you'll never know what this means to me. Today, I plan on it being my last.
Yeah.
But by giving me hope, by showing me to appreciate the things I took for granted, gave me new hope for this world. I will continue on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, that's powerful. That's better than, that will be an advocate. And because that simple thing, he will go through and we'll just talk about it. And he will tell the world about that one time that Dan said thank you to him.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to be able to take into consideration. That's where the real power is. And that's what will create all the opportunity you ever want in the world.
I love that. And I think there are certain people, and Dan Sullivan is definitely one of them. I read Who Not How, and I have to say I have an incredible man crush on both Dan and Dr. Hardy.
Yeah. I helped them
Love.
relaunch that book. Yeah.
Oh my God, I read that book and I just went, oh my God, that's what's missing. But Bob Berg is another one that
Yep.
stands out. He has done so much, and every now and then I reach out and say, what can I do for you? And he's like, Jeff, just keep being you. And I'm like, that doesn't feel like enough. And he's like, if you make somebody, and that's the thing, if you make somebody smile, maybe they were at the end of their rope. I've heard many instances of people who, I work with a lot of military veterans, and suicide's just part of their
Yeah.
community. And, a lot of them have said, well, I watched this and it made me smile and it made me put the gun down. And it's like, it's amazing when you realize that, there is a lot of mixed up, messed up stuff going on out there. We can't change it all, but we can be that tiny little piece of light that makes someone say, not today. And
That's
to
it.
me, I said something the other day, and my wife thought I was being very arrogant. And she said, what are you going to do today? And I said, I'm going to make the world a better place for someone. And she said, that sounds a little arrogant. And I said, no, it sounds a little mission driven. I mean, if we're not waking up with the intention of making the world a better place, why get out of bed?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Jeff, this is why when I had the opportunity to be able to jump on here, I took it 100%, right? Because in that same sense, right, when people ask me like, oh, what can I do for you? If it's the right person, all I do is say, look, keep being you, keep on changing lives, keep on adding value, because I can't change this world on my own. I tried. I almost killed myself doing it. The only way I can truly make this world a better place, not only for my kids, but for future generations, is together. Because the only way we rise up is rising up together. So, like everyone listening, everyone is so important. And if they're listening to you, I know they're good people. And so they just have to continue to be able to do what they're doing every single day. There's not anything specific other than treat people with respect, right? Treat yourself with respect and do those things to add value, not just to monetize.
I love it. Now let's actually talk about LinkedIn, since
Yeah, of course.
that was one of the things I'd promised my audience was coming. I am, so for the record, I'm transitioning the podcast to focus on two things and two things only, and they are going to be human to human connection and LinkedIn
Love it.
connection. So I feel like this is the perfect episode to announce that and move forward. What are your top tips and just quick little ones on what would you like to see more of on LinkedIn? I've been called a LinkedIn gatekeeper because I bounce the people from my world who drive me nuts. But what would
Yeah.
you like to see in our world of LinkedIn?
Well, here's the whole piece, right, Jeff? I mean, LinkedIn's been around for 20 years, right? Longer than any other social media platform. So I mean, that one thing is huge, right? And people don't see the power that's on there. The biggest thing that people go in and like, oh, it's a place to find a job or to be able to get hired. It's transitioned so much from there, especially once Microsoft purchased them a couple of years ago for $26.4 billion, right? I mean, that number shifted. I think last time I looked, it was like almost 80 billion they're valued at. So it's one of Microsoft's best investments ever. So we continue to be able to see these things. And the one thing you have to be able to do is, unless you're looking for a job, don't let your personal profile show up as a resume. It's your career journey, right? You have to be able to tell a story. I don't have on there like I'm the CEO of Standard Authority and that's it, right? Like I didn't wake up and I wasn't born that way. It took a lot of time, energy, effort to be able to get there. So like if you look at my profile, like I start all the way down from when I used to be a server at Chili's, right? I tell all the different people, I go, you know how many people reach out and like, oh my God, you worked at Chili's? Me too, right?
Used to
Conversation,
that at Chili's.
relationship, being able to go through there because we want to be able to shorten that gap that's
Yeah.
between us and our audience, right? Because most of them, they go here like, oh, wow, that gap's too large. I can't connect with that person. But when you start laying out all these different things, and I was just having this conversation with Evan Carmichael the other day, and, he's like, oh, so you want me to put on there, I worked at so-and-so and I did this and I sold shoes. I'm like, yeah, these are the things that actually really allow us to relate. We want to be able to go through, we want to be able to share because, and I start with the personal profile, Jeff, because if we start going in and saying, hey, this is what you need to do on content, this is how you need to do messaging. If those people go back to your profile and it's not fully fleshed out and your story's not really told, you've just lost the opportunity to be able to connect with that audience, right? Because they're going to go back in and look at it. I see that all the time. People want a lead gen, they want to go through, they don't take the time to be able to build that personal relationship because we live in a world where, are you a car guy, Jeff?
Not really, but I like cars.
Well, me too. I would say the same thing. So in this scenario, unless you're a car person, if I said Mercedes, Porsche, or Tesla, what person's name comes to mind?
Nicola.
Well, I was talking about cars. You really, you got me on that one. You're like Nikola Tesla. Talking about Elon
Sorry.
Musk.
Elon would be second, but yes.
In the world of cars, right?
Yeah.
We're talking in generality, Tesla, and I appreciate that. So in cars, though, but Elon Musk, right? Love him or hate him, right? He's got a personal brand that stands out. But Mercedes and Porsche have been around for decades longer, but most people couldn't tell you what they do or what they run. And so, like, that personal
why
brand
they exist. Yeah.
extends past all his stuff that he does. And so that's what we need to understand, right? Human beings connect with other human beings. So you have to be able to tell that story on your personal profile. Now, one quick hit I'll give everyone really quickly. Everyone's like, I'm the CEO, I'm the director of sales, entrepreneur. Like, dude, that's great. That's all about you. But no one cares about you. No one cares about your shiny shit. So, I mean, like really being able to go through, right? So we have to make it about them. And I always say the XYZ statement. So when your headline, like I always say, use an XYZ statement, which is I help X to achieve Y so they can have or achieve Z, right? I help X, my ideal audience, right? It pushes the right people towards me and pushes away the wrong people, right? Being that's me, right? Being able to self-identify allows someone to go puts themselves in your story. I help to do. To do is the service that you provide. Most marketers, and we've seen it over the last 20 years, they want to sell you on what they do. They want to teach you how to be able to make the hamburger. No
Yeah.
one cares how to make the hamburger. They just care how it
Nope.
tastes,
Yeah.
right? You have to tell them what it is because it's I help X to do Y so they can have, so they can achieve, so they can whatever be Z. That's emotional outcome. That's what people really care about. And when you have that XYZ statement, they can go, that's me. Ooh, I want that. I want that outcome. That's how I want to feel. Like that's what I really want. And when you have that, it allows them to be able to get drawn right into your profile and start really being able to go, this is who I want to connect with. And so that's just the profile side. I mean, like we can go into content, we can go into to messaging, but I mean, like I
Well,
have to share these things because I don't know. I think it helps everyone when we actually learn how to be able to tell our story.
and honestly, I think that's the secret to LinkedIn. It is a storytelling platform. I mean, we are storytelling, sharing,
Yeah.
listening people. That's it's in our DNA. But I love that if you don't have your profile right, you're not going to get any of the benefits. You're just going to get, again, it's just another social media platform, and next thing you know, you're posting videos on here's how we make the hamburger, and people are going, ugh, I
Well,
didn't want to
LinkedIn's
see
already
that.
said recently they don't care about the viral videos, right? And they don't care about all those stuff, being able to
Yeah.
go through. So like they're really looking for those added values. I mean, like, Jeff, and this that whole thing. Why should everyone go through and fill out every aspect of your profile? Right. I'm talking about not just where you've worked, projects you worked on, how do you give back to the community? Like for many years, I'm the resident Spider-Man at Dell Children's Hospital, right? Like I have these things, I'm always
Of course you are.
I try to be spandex ready. Believe you me, like it's not always the case, but the kids are always smiling. It's one of those pieces, right? So, but really being able to go in, like we have to be able to show these people who we are outside of just the business world, right? Who do we are? Are you a dad? Do you do this? Do you love doing like these are ways to be able to build that connection, that commonality. But it's not just that. Like because Microsoft owns LinkedIn, LinkedIn's actually one of the most highly indexed platforms out there on Google. Their SEO is like the Moz score is 100 out of 100. So like everything that you put on your profile gets highly indexed on Google. That's a huge win. Now we're not just talking about your profile, right? Like your content, your comments, your articles, everything is getting high because we're not just getting found on LinkedIn, but we're getting found on Google. And I was just up at LinkedIn's offices about a month and a half ago, and working on some of their AI stuff that they're doing with beta. Like Microsoft also invested $13 billion in another small company called OpenAI, which everyone now
Oh,
knows as ChatGPT, right?
yeah.
AI. We can kind of go into it. And let me tell you, Jeff, how they're leveraging LinkedIn and really indexing those human beings, similar to what Elon Musk, was trying to do with Twitter or AKA X or whatever you want to call it, right? Like, and to be able to build his next AI, that's what LinkedIn and Microsoft are doing right now. And it's going to really help people become the authorities in their space. And so if that's going to happen, we got to be able to make sure we're showing up not only on our profile, but our content and our comments, because all that's getting indexed.
I love that. And I think one of the things I'm going to just say, one of the things I find that are underutilized are the recommendations, or like there's a lot of taking and not enough giving, and that's one of my favorite things. Is I comment on people's
Yeah.
posts. Whenever Joshua pops up in my feed, I make sure I'll make sure I share that more, because you and I have talked now. The algorithm's going to say, oh, these two know each
Oh
other.
yeah.
But I always tell people, just leave a comment.
Yeah.
Dan Sullivan doesn't get away with posting without Jeff commenting.
Yeah.
Bob Berg, I comment, and I know it helps them in some little way, but it's also, your local business. And by the way, I'm a big fan of positive reviews. My mom taught me, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. I hate when I see people who they're literally the self-appointed internet curmudgeon. They walk around complaining about everything. I don't need you in my world. Just keep walking. But if you have a local business that went above and beyond, shout that from the freaking rooftop. Like,
Yeah.
share that with everyone, because they need that little extra love from the algorithms.
I love that, Jeff. You know, it's funny that you talk about your mom shared, like, you know, one of the main rules in our house for our kids is the first rule is always, it's nice to be nice, right? Being able to go through. So like how we actually even take that, not only with the kids, but how we actually go through on LinkedIn. What's the first thing most people, you connect with someone, right? And then what do they do first? They
Drop
pitch
their
you.
pants and say, "Look at me." It's like,
Exactly.
pull those
My
out.
mom taught me better, right? And like, you know, you're asking things about what my mom taught me. My mom taught me when you meet someone new, you say, you give them a compliment. Wow, Jeff, you know, I mean, you know, love your glasses, or a cool dog, love, you know, whatever it might
Yeah.
be, right? We always say nice things. You don't walk up to someone like, hey, Jeff, first time I meet you, like, you ever try to use LinkedIn? You know, you're like, who are you? Like, nice to meet you. You know, it's,
Yeah.
you take me out to dinner first, you know, kind of situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like on LinkedIn, nice to be nice and giving a compliment, I look at it as being able to endorse someone, right? Being able to go through, and people go, well, how can you endorse someone you don't know? Again, it's nice to be nice. LinkedIn goes, hey, Jeff, Josh endorsed you for marketing. You want to say thank you, right? It's starting a conversation, being able to go through, it's giving to without worrying about receiving. And it's just one of those pieces that goes through. And it's amazing how that can truly be able to open up opportunity in relationships and straight those conversations from a simple act of kindness.
I love that. And I think that that is the key phrase of all of our conversation. Simple act of kindness. Just being nice to somebody. Again, you don't know what that ripple will cause.
Yeah. We're not talking about like massive, like, okay, guys, everyone take down your pencils and really, you're going to really need to listen to this 5 more times to be able to understand this algorithm I'm going to teach you. Right.
Yeah.
Like it's common sense. And I think
Yeah.
this is the problem that we continue to be able to get off track with. Right. I've been in business and being able to do what I do. I'm not doing anything. I'm not teaching rocket science. I'm just
Yeah.
reminding people the you and human.
I love it. And I'm actually teaching a workshop, and the heart of the workshop is, here are all the little levers and pulleys on LinkedIn where you can say thank you to people.
That's it.
And
I love it.
and it's funny because I have friends who are LinkedIn gurus, and they're like, no, that doesn't help with the algorithm. And I'm like, I don't care about the algorithm. The algorithm's on some machine somewhere. It will be fine. I care about the human.
Right. Well, they're caring about that LinkedIn algorithm. Again, like you and I talked about, that's
Yeah.
constantly shifting and changing. The human algorithm doesn't. It just evolves, right? And like if we pay attention to that, we can do it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. It works across all platforms. And I mean, I've been doing the same things for the last 8 years with slight adjustments, but like the core of it still being you. And so like I'm not always kind of going, here, if you go in and listen to a podcast I gave 8 years ago, guess what? You're almost going to hear the exact same things and same. I'm not changing anything,
Yeah.
right? So I don't have to continue to remember, okay, here's the cool new thing. Yes, there are cool new things that are coming out, but the core of what you and I talk about and share, being human, right? That's
Yeah.
what we need to be able to remind everyone.
I love that. Now, I'd be remiss, because the whole point of this conversation is people are going to meet the human that is Joshua and say,
Yeah.
hey, I'd like to work with you. Where can people go to get to know you, connect with you, learn more about you, engage in your community?
All right. I'm going to surprise you big time on this one, right? LinkedIn.
What? Oh my God, I didn't see that coming.
But look, Jeff, I'm going to tell you this right now. Like, this is the one thing I want people to pay. Like, look, you find me Joshua B. Lee, I'm on there. But at the same time, I took this from my kids, right? Like, I don't play Pokemon on LinkedIn. And this is what I think most people look at. I'm not trying to collect them all, right? This is everyone is hitting that add button, right? And it's trying to collect as many people as possible for a number. And they sit back and they go, man, my LinkedIn feed sucks. I get pitched all the time, right? Like you're playing Pokemon on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
Like you're trying to collect them all. The biggest thing I want people to reach out, if they're going to reach out to me and be able to have a conversation, be able to have opportunity for us to be able to build a relationship, what I want everyone to do is to be able to reach out, send me a personalized message and tell me why you love or listen to Jeff, right? Because then Jeff, if they tell me that, not only am I learning more about them because they're telling me what they love about you and what's going on, what they learn, but then I can actually even share that with you as well. And then they can kind of go back, and then you and I get to be able to build a stronger relationship. So that's what I really love. And when I get these things, that's an awesome way to be able to connect with another human being.
I love it. And for the record, I think about 100 people said when I reached out to my network, they said, "You've got to talk to Joshua. He's the guy." Now,
Thank
you
you.
are the expert at being you. Is there anything I should have asked you that I haven't?
Hmm. As we kind of go through, you and I have talked about almost everything. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, like, this has been a truly enjoyable conversation, Jeff. And we talked about life, personal, and making different decisions, how to be able to LinkedIn, how to be human. I mean, we've covered all those things. I mean, the biggest thing I usually tell everyone is like, look, it's you got to be 100% you 100% of the time, on and offline. I mean, that's the big thing that I think most people miss out on because they're trying to be this other persona, right? And we don't have those two different lives. And so, with that being said, I mean, look, man, you're an amazing master of your craft, and I appreciate you having me on today.
Well, it was a real pleasure. And I just want to underline this for the people watching. This is the first time you and I have met.
Yeah,
I believe, we've built a relationship. I will find ways to serve Josh, and he will find ways to help me. Um, that's the power of relationships. So I strongly encourage everybody to build authentic relationships. And Joshua, I want to thank you. It was a real pleasure chatting with you and sharing your expertise.
thank you, Jeff. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to either click the link below or scan the QR code to register and listen to other episodes of our podcast. Or if you think your business or you would be a great guest to be on our show, we're always looking for experts in one of the 9 elements of holistic wellness. We'd love to have you. You can either click the link below or you can scan the QR code and complete our speaker intake form. Thank you, and to your wellness.